In this video I will show you how you can create a simple virus in Python. Disclaimer: this video is for entertainment purposes only. I do not take responsibility for any of your actions. Infecting other people's computers with viruses is illegal. Before we get to the coding part, I will quickly explain how the virus works and what it does. In the first step, the virus will copy itself. This means that it will create a new variable and copy its entire source code into this variable. In the second step, the virus will try to find other Python programs which it can infect. In the last step, the virus will take its own source code, which it copied, and paste it into all the files it found. It will do it in a way that does not affect functionality. Now let's get to the actual coding. In the first step, we will mark the beginning and the end of our virus with 2 comments. This is important because the virus needs to know which code to copy and which code to ignore. In the next step, you will need to import sys, glob, and threading. Those are the libraries which we will be using to make this virus. Once you're done with this, create a new class called virus and give it the parameter thread. After that, create a new function called run and give it the self parameter. Now we can proceed to copying the virus. For this, we will need to create a new variable called code. Create this variable and give it an empty list. Now use the with open command and the sys.argv parameter to open the current file. After that, use the readLines function to copy everything into a new variable. Next, you can print an optional debugger message. In the next step, we need to filter the code so that we only copy the virus. For this, you need to create a boolean which defines if we are copying a line or not. Once you have this boolean, create a for loop which will check every line in lines. We will do this with 3 if statements. The first if statement will check if the line is start. If the line equals start, we will set replicate to true so that the second if statement can begin to copy the lines. After every line, the third if statement will check if the line equals end. If it equals end, it will break the loop because that means that we have already copied the entire virus. If you still remember my explanation from earlier, you will know that in the next step we need to find other files to infect. This can be done really easy using the glob library. Just create a new variable and use the glob.glob function to search for every file with a .py extension in the current folder. Afterwards, you can print an optional debugging message. In the last step, we will need to modify all the files we found. First, create 3 variables: infections, which you will set to 0. In this variable, we will count how many files we could infect. Already infected, which you will set to -1. In this variable, you will count how many files were already infected, and you will set it to -1 because the virus will count itself as the first infected file it finds. And the last variable is to check, which you will set to the length of scripts -1 because again the virus will count itself. Once you have created all those variables, create a for loop for each script in scripts. Now that you have selected a script, in this loop you need to open the script and copy its code. You can do this using the with open command and passing script as a parameter. Then use R to set it to read mode. Now you can create a new variable called script code and use the readLines function to copy everything from the script into this variable. Now that we have the script code and the virus code, we need to combine them. We do this by creating a new variable called infected code and giving it an empty list. Once you have created this variable, use the extend function to add the virus. Once you have added the virus, use the extend function again to add \n. This just means that it will add an empty line. After that, use the extend function to add script code and then again add \n to generate an empty line. Now you will use the extend function one last time to add the phrase virus.join. Now that we have created the infected code, we need to check if it is okay to paste it or not. For that, create a new boolean called infected and set it to false. Now create a for loop for lines in script code. Then create an if statement that checks if a line equals start. If the line equals start, set infected to true and increase already infected by 1. After that, break the loop. Then create a second if statement which checks if a file is not infected. If it is not infected, use the with open command to open the file in write mode and write all the infected code. After that, increase infections by 1. Once you're done, you can print an optional debugging message and create an object for the virus, then call the virus.start function. There are 2 minor errors in the script. The first one is in line 18, where you need to capitalize the C. The second one can be found in line 43 to 46, where you need to remove 1 space. Now that you're done coding the virus, let me demonstrate to you how it works. First, create a new empty Python file in the same folder. Then try to run the virus. You should see 1 file tested and 1 infection. If you check the Python file which you just created, you should also see that the virus copied itself into this file. Let's make it a bit harder for our virus. For this, I will write a simple hello world program into the new Python file. If you start the file now, it will print hello world. Let's run the virus again to see how it deals with this. As you can see, it still copies itself just fine, while the original program is still there. Once you run the file, you can see that it still prints hello world just fine, and without debugging messages, the user would have no way of knowing that he's actually running a virus. Let's test what happens when the original file needs some time to execute. For this, I will create the same hello world program, however, I also added a 5-second delay to it. If I run the program now, it will wait 5 seconds and then print hello world. Let's reinfect the file and see what happens. You can see that the virus is not affected by this 5 seconds delay. This is because it's running on its own thread and is completely independent from the rest of the program. I hope this video could help you. Please keep in mind that this is for educational purposes only and must not be used with malicious intent.